Hi, it's Carol from BookReporter.com, and I'm here to share what you're going to see on the site on Friday, April 10th. Happy Passover, happy Easter, whatever you're celebrating. I'm sure you're sheltering in place, calling family, and watching them do whatever they're doing via Zoom. Crazy times, folks. We will look back on this and say, remember that year, because this will pass. But we have a lot of books for you to read this week. We have a lot of contests to be telling you about. So we are planning to keep you busy. First up, from Lisa Wingate, we have the Book of Lost Friends. Talked to you a little bit about this last week, but here's your recap. The book is originally set in 1875. It's right after the Civil War, and a lot of slaves or ex-slaves are trying to connect with their families because many people were sold off and the master would just sell them to this person or that person. If they'd be walking down the road, they'd give these people away. And as a result, the people are scattered all over the South and are trying to find each other. So there is a book of lost friends. The book is actually a collection of all the ads that ran during that time that people would be placing, and they would actually be running where pastors would be reading these ads aloud at pulpits and talking about them so they could try to help reconnect families. It's absolutely fascinating. The way Lisa did her research, I interviewed her, and I cannot wait for you to all be able to see that interview on the different pieces of the way she went and put this story together. Also, because Lisa loves dual timelines, we've got a more modern day story as well. It was done in 1987. She shares why she did that in our interview. And when you hear the story, there's a young teacher who's trying to pay off her student loans by teaching in an area that's more impoverished. And it's what she learns from those kids from being there and how these two worlds connect. So well done. Book of Lost Friends, Lisa Wingate. And by the way, if you're trying to remember how you know her name, it's because her last book was Before We Were Yours, the #1 New York Times bestseller. Lots of comments about that. Lots of book clubs read that book. Next, we have a book that I am crazy about called Hidden Valley Road, Inside the Mind of an American Family by Robert Kolker. I'm actually going to be interviewing Bob later on after I shoot this video, and I am so looking forward to having a conversation with him about this wonderful piece of narrative nonfiction. This reads like a novel, and it's the story about this family. There were 12 children, 10 of them were boys, and of those 10 boys, 6 were schizophrenic. And as a result, this is a family that lived in Colorado, the Galvin family, and what we had was a lot of people wanted to do research on them to learn about schizophrenia. What was the genetic makeup of this? What happened in this family? Why did they have this number of children with this where this has happened? So the book actually he interviews the 9 living members of the family, and each of their stories are told, as well as the 3 who have passed away. And beyond that, he also talks about the science, where he's met with researchers and scientists and geneticists to see exactly what schizophrenia is. It's an absolutely fascinating book. And I'll share that I actually counted the children, and the 12th one is because the mother's pregnant. So absolutely wonderful book. I'm so looking forward to interviewing him. We will have that up on Friday as well. Next, from Don Winslow. And I actually have a prop for this one as well. Got my Don Winslow mug here, and he says, no matter how you come into this world, you come out broken. And this is a collection of 6 short stories that he's done. Some of them feature some characters that people may be familiar with, or some settings they may be familiar with from Don and from his past books. And I'm going to be interviewing him next week, and I want to talk to him about why he decided to use the short story format this time. I've read 2 of the stories so far. They're completely engrossing. It's reminding me how much I really loved a book of his years ago called The Dawn Patrol. And Joe Hartlub, who, as you know, is our fabulous reviewer, contributed some questions that I'm going to be asking Don as well. So if you're looking for great short stories, really succinct, great storytelling, Don Winslow. For this next book, we don't have a cover. Austin will superimpose one over here, but here we go. One Fatal Flaw, a Daniel Pitt novel by Anne Perry. Two fiery deaths have young lawyer Daniel Pitt and his scientist friend Miriam Ford Croft racing to solve a forensic crisis in this explosive new novel. When a desperate woman comes to Daniel Pitt seeking a lawyer for her boyfriend Rob Adwell, Daniel is convinced of the young man's innocence. Adwell had been accused of murder and of setting a fire to conceal the body, but he's sure he can absolve him. And Miriam is the best scientist he knows. She connects Daniel with her former teacher, an expert in arson, and together they try to prove that an accidental fire caused the victim's death. But you're not really sure what is really going to happen, because right after that, Adwell is killed in the same fiery fashion. Are these death murders? What essential clue did Daniel and Miriam miss? Okay, for our new release spotlight, which was where we spotlight a book that we're really crazy about that's coming out or just out, we've got The Engineer's Wife by Tracey Emerson Wood. She built a monument for all time, and then she was lost in his shadow. Talked to you about this last week because we had a contest for it. So many of you entered, which was so lovely to see. But let me do a little quick recap. Emily Warren Roebling refuses to live conventionally. She knows who she is and what she wants, and she's determined to make change. She's fighting with the suffragettes. Emily's fight is put on hold and transformed when Wash, her husband, who's the chief engineer for the Brooklyn Bridge, is injured on the job. Untrained for the task, but under his guidance, she assumes his role, despite really she doesn't want to be doing this, and overwhelming obstacles. Things start to blur of like, who knows what? What does she know and what does Wash know? He's getting all the credit for this project, but what does she really know and what is she doing? So it's based on the true story of the Brooklyn Bridge, and it delivers an emotional portrait of a woman that's transformed by a project that was really beyond her scope of working on, but became something that she really put her heart and soul into and her mind. So it's one of those books that we always talk about the woman that is beside the man instead of the woman that is behind the man. So we've got The Engineer's Wife. Next up, we have a book that I actually picked as one of my Book Reporter Bets On selections last year as one of our paperback spotlights books because it's just out in paperback. The Girls of 17 Swan Street by Yara Zgheib is a book that is poetic and poignant, and there's just so much between these pages. It's a haunting portrait of a young woman's struggle with anorexia on an intimate journey to reclaim her life. I remember where I was sitting at the lower end of the pool reading this book a couple of years ago. And while I thought I knew a lot about eating disorders, I realized how much I didn't know, how varied they are, how these can trip up somebody's life, and how some of the obsessions and the compulsions that these young women or these women have in this book will be something that will keep them from living life normally. In this book, we've got somebody, Anna Rue, who's a ballerina. She's a brilliant dancer. She's married to a guy who loves her and she loves him, but she cannot conquer what her eating disorder is. And as a result, her life is being ruined. And he comes each night to come visit her at 17 Swan Street, which was where she's trying to recover. And at the same time, she is trying so hard to make her life work and see a path forward for herself. There are many women in this place. I cannot say more about that. You want to read this book just because once you read it, you will understand so much better what actually the disorder is, these different kinds of eating disorders, the different levels of them. You'll have sympathy for these people, and you also see how hard they're fighting to try to move their path forward. And I'm not going to tell you how it ends. Next up is a book that is going to be part of one of the 4 books we're going to be giving away next week in our spring preview promotion. It's Circe by Madeline Miller, a book that everyone has been waiting to come out for in paperback. It's coming out in paperback on Tuesday. And in fact, we have a contest for this as well that's running on Reading Group Guides. So if you want to win this for your book group, jump out to Reading Group Guides. Tell us what your book group is reading this month, and we realize a lot of you are going to be reading remotely or conversing via email or doing all kinds of things, but still trying to get your book club meetings in. Tell us what you're reading, and you could be eligible to win one of 3 sets of 12 copies of this book. But you can also win 5 copies in spring preview. If you're not really sure what this book is about, let me remind you. It's a bold and subversive retelling of the goddess's story. It's both epic and intimate in scope, recasting the most famous female figure from the Odyssey as a hero in her own right. So Circe, we know that Madeline Miller's book was one that was read by so many people, but for book groups and for those of you who are waiting for the paperback, moments arrived. Daughters of ERIETOWN by Connie Schultz is our next giveaway book next week. It's actually not coming out until June 9th. So what you want to do is be able to read a galley in advance, which is always nice to get ahead in your reading and also be able to be ahead of what everybody's going to be talking about. In this book, hidden desires, long-held secrets, and the sacrifices that people make for family are at the heart of this powerful first novel by the popular Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. In 1957, in Clayton Valley, Ohio, Ellie has the best grades in her class. Her dream is to go to nursing school and marry Brick McGinty, a basketball star. He has the chance to escape his abusive father and become the first person in his blue-collar family to attend college. But Ellie learns she's pregnant and everything changes. And just as they revise their plans and build a family, a knock on the front door threatens to destroy their lives. The evolution of women's lives in the second half of the 20th century is at the heart of this beautiful novel. So here we've got The Daughters of ERIETOWN. We've got He Started It by Samantha Downing. This is now coming out on July 28th. So once again, you'll be able to read it in advance and have something to talk about. From the twisted mind behind the mega hit, The Lovely Wife, comes the story of a family not unlike your own, just with a few more violent tendencies thrown in. Beth, Portia, and Eddie Morgan haven't been together in years, and for good reasons. We'll get to those later. But when their wealthy grandfather dies and leaves a final cryptic message in his wake, the siblings and their respective parents must come together for a cross-country road trip to fulfill his final wish and, more importantly, secure their inheritance. But the time with your family can tough, and it is for everyone. It's even harder when you're all keeping secrets and trying to forget a memory, a missing person, an act of revenge. The man in the black truck who won't stop following your car, and especially when at least one of you is a killer and there's a body in the trunk, just to name a few reasons. But money is a powerful motivator. It isn't for everyone. And let me just say that the way I see it, that's not a family that you would want to be quarantining with. Truths I Never Told You by Kelly Rummer is from the best-selling author of Things We Cannot Say. It's a poignant post-World War II novel that explores the expectations society places on women, set within an engrossing family mystery that may unravel everything once believed to be true. When her father recently moved to a care facility, Beth Walsh volunteers to clear out the family home and is surprised to discover the door to her childhood playroom padlocked. She's even more shocked at what's behind it. A hoarder's nest of her father's paintings, mounds of discarded papers, and miscellaneous junk in the otherwise fastidious house. As she picks through the clutter, she finds a loose journal entry in what appears to be her late mother's handwriting. Beth and her siblings grew up believing their mother died in a car accident when they were little more than toddlers, but this suggests something more dark. So as a result, she pieces together a disturbing portrait of a woman suffering from postpartum depression and a husband who bears very little resemblance to the father that she knew. So we've got 4 really terrific books that we're going to be giving away next week. Now, to enter the spring preview contest, you either need to go to the site every day and see what we're offering, or you need to go sign up for the spring preview newsletter that will come right to your mailbox. So in your very busy quarantine time, you can open a piece of mail from us and just go enter the contest. Now, I have some other little treats to share with you because it's Easter at my house. No one is coming to visit, so I have to share. First of all, this is one of my favorite bunnies that are around the house. We have a lot of bunnies that are upstairs in the attic from when the boys were little. I think I bought them 2 every year. I don't know why. I have all this like crazy consumption, but this is one of the favorite bunnies. This is a Easter basket that we bought years ago out in Crested Butte, Colorado, which is actually the town where Tom and I met. And I actually love this every year. I put little jelly beans in it and try and stuff this with, all kinds of beautiful flowers and things like this. So this is my favorite little Easter bunny house. And This is where we put jelly beans in our little jelly bean carrot wagon. So I'm sharing these because except for you, Tom and Greg, no one else is going to be seeing my Easter decorations this month. So here we go. Also, remember a couple of weeks ago, I said to you, if a number of you signed up for the Morning Brew newsletter, I could win a pair of socks. Well, thanks to all of you, here is my pair of Morning Brew socks. I absolutely love this newsletter. We'll put a link to how you can subscribe to it in the bottom. It's all about the financial and the tech world. They've been doing a terrific job during the quarantine days of putting out some fabulous content, things that I'm not, seeing other places. Unfortunately, remember I hoped the socks would come with $5,000 in one of the socks. It didn't, but I'll still wear the socks and think of all of you that were so helpful in making sure that I won these. I'm trying to think if there's anything else to share. I think that there's just a huge update this week with many, many thanks to Tom Donadio, who's our editorial director and leading that charge. And thank you for Greg for taping this in our family room, and to Austin for all his editing. Happy Easter, happy Passover. We'll see you on Friday.